The highly anticipated peace plan presented by the administration of President Donald Trump to end the war in Ukraine has been formally and completely rejected by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, leading to a swift and total collapse of the diplomatic initiative and plunging future negotiations into profound doubt. The proposed terms, which were delivered to Kyiv by a special envoy from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, were met with immediate and visceral outrage from the Ukrainian political establishment. President Zelensky, in a somber, nationally televised address, declared the American proposals a recipe for the President Zelensky, in a somber, nationally televised address, declared the American proposals a recipe for the dismemberment of Ukraine and a de facto capitulation to Russian aggression, vowing that his country would never accept terms that sacrifice its territorial integrity and sovereignty. The public and definitive nature of this rejection marks a new low in U.S.-Ukraine relations and represents a stunning diplomatic failure for the nascent Trump administration, which had hoped its unique position could broker a deal where its predecessor could not. The core elements of the Trump peace plan, as reported by officials briefed on the negotiations, include several points that were anathema to Kyiv. First and foremost was a demand for Ukraine to enter into direct bilateral negotiations with Russia, effectively sidelining the established international forums and placing Ukraine in a position of severe weakness against its much larger adversary. The most controversial provision was the de facto recognition of Russian sovereignty over the Crimean Peninsula, annexed in 2014, and a cessation of hostilities that would freeze the current front lines in place, leaving Russia in control of nearly all of the Donbas, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson region. Furthermore, the plan included a demand for Ukraine to commit to a form of permanent neutrality enshrined in its constitution, which would implicitly forbid any future membership in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In exchange, the proposal offered a full lifting of international sanctions on Russia and a massive American-led financial package for the reconstruction of Ukraine, though notably it did not include any security guarantees from the United States or its allies. President Zelensky's rejection was absolute and emotionally charged. There are compromises and there are surrenders. What was presented to us is not a peace plan. It is an ultimatum from the Kremlin, apparently delivered through Washington. We are being asked to legalize the theft of our land, to reward the invader, and to betray the tens of thousands of Ukrainians who have given their lives for our freedom. Our answer is no. We will not give up our land. We will not give up our people. We will not give up our path to the free world. The world must know that Ukraine stands firm. We will fight for what is ours, with or without the plans of others, he stated from the presidential office in Kyiv. The address was met with widespread support across the Ukrainian political spectrum, with even opposition figures uniting behind the president in his defiance. The reaction from the Trump administration was one of fury and frustration. In off-the-record comments to journalists, senior White House officials lambasted Zelensky as ungrateful and delusional, questioning his understanding of the grim military reality on the ground following the Russian breakthrough at Pokrovsk. President Trump himself took social media, writing, "We presented a very good deal, a deal that would stop the dying immediately, a deal that would have gotten Ukraine billions and billions of dollars for rebuilding. But Zelensky turned it down. He wants to keep fighting a war he cannot win." Very sad. This public chastism of a wartime ally is without modern precedent and signal a dramatic rupture in the bilateral relationship. Secretary of State Rubio offered a more measured, though equally firm, rebuttal, stating that the U.S. proposal was grounded in the reality of the current situation and that while the path of diplomacy remains open, the door will not stay open indefinitely. The collapse of the American plan has been met with a mixture of quiet relief and public concerns by European allies. While no European leaders supported the substance of the Trump proposal, which they saw as rewarding aggression, they are now deeply fearful of the consequences of a complete breakdown in U.S.-Ukrainian cooperation. The German Chancellor expressed full solidarity with Ukraine's right to determine its own path to peace, but also urged all parties to keep channels of communication open. There is a palpable fear in European capitals that the United States, spurred by Kyiv, will now disengage entirely, cutting off vital military aid and leaving Europe to shoulder the entire burden of supporting Ukraine against a resurgent Russian military, a burden they are politically and militarily unprepared to bear alone. In Moscow, the reaction was predictably triumphal. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov declared that the Ukrainian rejection exposed the true warmongering nature of the Kyiv regime and proved that the West is controlled by Russophobic elements who will sacrifice the Ukrainian people to the last. The Russian narrative will undoubtedly use this event to argue that it is Ukraine, not Russia, that is refusing peace, providing a propaganda victory to justify the ongoing offensive. Kremlin officials hinted that they had been aware of the American proposal and had viewed it as a basis for further discussion, though they stopped short of offering their full endorsement, suggesting they believed they could extract even more concession to continued military pressure. The immediate fallout is a tangible sense of abandonment in Kyiv and a hardening of resolve. With the prospect of a negotiated peace brokered by its primary ally now vanished, Ukraine faces a stark future. Fight on with potentially diminishing support from a frustrated Washington or sick new patrons elsewhere. The Ukrainian parliament is now debating a bill that would formally make any negotiations with the current Russian leadership illegal, a direct response to the American proposal. On the battlefield, the rejection of the plan has a dual effect. It boosts the morale of soldiers who see their government refusing to surrender, but it also dashes the faint hope many held for a near-term end to the bloody conflict. The war, it is now clear, will continue, and its next phase will be fought under a cloud of diplomatic isolation and uncertainty about the reliability of Ukraine's most powerful friends. The failure of this initiative raises profound questions about the Trump administration foreign policy strategy. It appears to have misjudged both the Ukrainian willingness to compromise on core principles and the level of resistance its plan would generate from European partners. The doctrine of negotiating from a position of strength has, in this first major test, resulted in a complete breakdown. The administration is now left with limited and unpalatable options. Double down on military support in line with the president's earlier comments about striking Russia, which risk a wider war, or follow through on the implied threat to disengage, which would all but guarantee a Ukraine's defeat. The world now watches to see which path a humble and angry American presidency would choose. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. And so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to World Global Conflict, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first ones on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you're a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now. And we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.